Good evening, everybody. There's some strange things that just took place in Kerrville, Texas. Some very odd anomalies that need to be looked into. Some things that need to be made known about what goes on in different forms of weather manipulation. And these things are just used to be a conspiracy, just like so many other things that are now just mainstream news. You hear it all over the place. Every single podcast, every single news station now mentions these things. And for years, many of us were criticized for saying that these things even existed. Now they're government-funded programs that are widely available. And this does play into what happened in Kerrville. And first off, we will say prayers to everybody affected by this because it's a tragedy, no matter how it began. Natural event or an event that was, built up, manipulated into what it became. But no matter what, people lost their lives. A lot of children lost their lives. It's a real tragedy. And so keep these people in our prayers continually, and to not have any, just disrespect towards what happened towards them. But these events need to be looked into and to be questioned, because this is not the first time that this type of thing has happened. Dubai had massive flooding. What was that, about a year ago or so? And what did they start doing at the same exact time? Cloud seeding that exact area. They could predict exactly where and when it would rain that day. They would just tell people, like, it'll rain tomorrow, 3 o'clock, because they're cloud seeding and predicting what is going to come. What's up, guys? I see in the chat. God bless you. Susan, David, Will. I pray that you guys are all well. Nice to see you guys. So yeah, we will get into some of the strange anomalies about what happened around this tragedy in Texas. Now, we'll start off with what is on the thumbnail for this video, because it's pretty strange, right? So here is an image, of course, of the solar eclipse that we know the multiple eclipses that happen in the past few years. We can see the exact dates here: April 8th, 2024, the 2014, and it crossed around the United States in a couple spots, but this is one of the main ones right here in Texas. And where is that X crossing? Well, it's exactly where this flood just took place. I will play this video here. Gonna have to cut the audio on it, but here is, again, an image of the exact thing. Of course, the X's, and right here in the center of that X, Kerrville, where that flood took place. Is it a coincidence? Hard to know. Very strange. But there's other things around this that for sure are no coincidence. A lot of manipulation going on, a smart city being built in that region. Crazy stuff. So we'll just get right into it. So here's one of the first things. This is from Here Comes Trouble XO on Instagram. Let's take a listen.
Anyone else think the massive floods in Texas July 4th were unnatural? That's because they were. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, cloud seeding was done in Texas 2 days before the incident by a company called Rainmaker that's funded by Peter Thiel, the same guy behind Project Stargate, a $500 billion investment into AI infrastructure in the United States. In fact, Rainmaker uses drones to do their dirty work. According to public records, Rainmaker was cloud seeding just 2 days before the catastrophic event. Weather modification is nothing new, dating all the way back to the 1800s. Climate change is not a conspiracy, because it's actually happening. But not for the reasons you've been told, because they're making it happen. Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, that's of course for sure. Climate change does not exist to the degree that they talk about. I've shown that many times, especially with the sea levels rising. Again, in the Bible, it says time and time again, verse after verse, that God creates the limits of the sea goes where it wants. We're not manipulating the sea level. God designs where he wants it to be and where it ends. And the same thing with all the other climate stuff. They say that it's because of this, it's because of that. And then what did we see? Again, just this last year, we saw Antarctica, ice growing in both the Arctics, I believe, but for sure in Antarctica, massive ice growth. At the same time, they're saying that it's melting and the seas are rising. We've been hearing that for years. Al Gore said the ice caps would be melted by 2007. Complete fraud. So this is pretty weird. 2 days before this massive flood in Texas hits, they were cloud seeding in that exact region of Texas. Now, here's the guy who actually runs the company Rainmaker, who was cloud seeding in the region of Texas right before it happened. Again, let's not forget the same thing happened in Dubai a few years ago. They cloud seed often there, and then it saw flooding like they've never seen. Of course, these type of things would make a difference on the natural course of nature.
Stuff. There's a lot of conspiracies out there on it.
Dude, I run a weather manipulation company. so yeah, I was first like a cashier at the front at the gym, and started training people.
And then you got introduced to Peter Thiel.
Yeah. Well, so I met Peter for the first time. Let's see about when that was.
And just a reminder, Peter Thiel is a guy, did one of my last live streams on him. This guy talking about the Antichrist, how he thinks AI will prevent the Antichrist from growing, that AI's control of the systems of the world will actually prevent the Antichrist from being able to do his things, when obviously anybody who knows exactly the control levels that the Antichrist will have will be using these systems to manipulate how people buy and sell, and the control of people who are either worshiping the image of the beast or not, and the people who are either obviously bowing down to the beast, following him, or not, and the Christians who will not be, and tracking them. Of course, that's how it'll go.
So I was invited to a fundraiser at Peter's house in LA. And that was the first time that I met him. That was before I became a Teal Fellow. I think that was just about as I started Rainmaker. And then got connected to this guy, former Navy guy, Josh Steinman. And he's the one that got me to the Blake Masters fundraiser. And that's how I met Peter, and then eventually got the Teal Fellowship for Rainmaker.
How did you get the Teal Fellowship?
So the Teal Fellowship, have you ever met any other Teal Fellows? So the premise is basically college is unnecessary. If you are an exemplary person that could have a high impact on the world, that can inspire other people to drop out of college and have a high impact, then Peter will give you a grant to live your life, start that company. And he thought that Rainmaker was it was a consequential enough idea to inspire other people and to have a big impact. And so that's why he gave to me the grant.
So Rainmaker, they are manipulating the storms in the region, again, manipulating cloud seeding right in the similar area of Texas days before. Here's a Texas farmer talking about cloud seeding, the dangers of weather manipulation. And when you think about it, we'll watch this other video here in just a minute of him talking and questioned, is he playing God? Is he manipulating things that shouldn't be manipulated against? And to a degree, what he says, it kind of makes sense in a way. Like, if we know how to change the weather and have it rain where there's famines, that could cause them to grow food there. They could have water. It could actually help humanity where humans are hurting in a lot of areas around the world. But to think that these things are not creating other things and having consequences in other parts of nature is crazy. And it's a dangerous road. Even if Rainmaker wasn't the cause of why this flood happens, or these cloud seeding efforts weren't what's causing massive floods around the world, going down the path of thinking that we can manipulate weather and it won't somehow play a massive effect on the way how nature's supposed to naturally just run, then, obviously that's crazy. Something will most likely bad come out of that. So here's a Texas farmer, again, talking about some of the weather manipulation stuff.
I want answers for what happened in Texas. You want answers? I have the answers. And you are going to have to do some research on how to get it. But there's your picture right there of Texas and the big flood. Okay? July 4th. And all those little girls missing, I bless them, bless their families. But I want to tell you, all of this flooding in Texas and Rainmaker has publicly available NOAA docs on their cloud seeding project. Everyone must start this investigation. If you want to know what happened, this is where you start. Everybody's showing all the flooding and everything. I'm giving you the documents, I'm telling you. So what you're going to do, you're going to go to the NOAA library, right? And you got to scroll down to the bottom of the page, but you'll see this is weather and climate collections. So you're going to scroll down to the bottom of that page there, and you're going to type in Texas. And what you're going to find is, you're going to find this, I've highlighted it here. You're going to find, and it'll tell you when they were seeding, okay? Because let's face it, folks, 30 foot of water in an hour at 4 a.m., people didn't have a chance. So when you get down here, what you're going to find out is it'll pull up a page like this, and you pull it up, And then it tells you the companies. Isn't that exciting? You want to know answers? Here's what you need to do. You need to call your governor, call your senator, call Chip Roy. He's a good one to talk to. And if Chip would like to talk to me, I'm right now working with 2 states writing weather modification bills that make it a crime, and it has huge penalties. I went to Washington, D.C., and I spoke and presented my new farm plan to Maha about creating 1 million new farms. You know what was the first thing in my farm plan? Stop weather modification. You know what they wanted me to do? Move it to the bottom or erase it altogether. You know why? Because they don't want you to know. Because weather modification is, I'm bone dry up here. I'm up here in my potato fields, and everybody else is soaking wet. So they can make it too dry or too wet. And I know this is hard to swallow, folks, and it's hard to wrap your head around. But here's what you can do when it does. It shows West Texas WMA right here. Rain enhancement, hail suppression. It tells you on these documents. It tells you exactly. The company is Rainmaker, and that's who's doing the cloud seeding in that area. What you can do is on all these documents, there's tons and tons of these documents, but it's so much to read and go through here, but you can bring this up. Do y'all want answers for what happened in Texas?
So something to for sure consider, because when they're willing to do that, when they're willing to manipulate the weather, just imagine what else could be going on. And this is something they have been doing for quite a while. During the Vietnam War, Operation Popeye, they were cloud seeding back then to flood the Ho Chi Minh Trail to make it tough for the North Vietnamese to be moving supplies and troops around that trail that they were using all the time. Of course, they have different weather modification stuff even now. And it does make you wonder if they have the capability to intensify storms. They probably have the capability to make storms go lower. And the same kind of thing was happening in when we saw the floods in North Carolina, something that, we haven't seen completely destroyed areas like that. I mean, you really don't see that often. And again, that area is projected to be a smart city. And the same thing in Kerrville, Texas, which we'll look at here in just a minute. But I mean, it does make you wonder. And of course, these are just theories, but what is going on exactly? It makes you wonder. Now, here's a guy being questioned again about, is he playing God with this weather manipulation stuff? And Kate said in the chat, they have legalized propaganda to be used against the American citizens. So keep that in mind. And for sure, that's exactly what we're seeing now with the Epstein stuff. When they just come out, everybody knows there's more going on. Of course, they had information. Even the FBI who went in to gather his stuff from his house, the lawyers said what could be given and what could be not to the FBI. So if they're willing to lie about stuff like that on all these guys involved, then what are they really going to say and do about the weather or storms? Appreciate that, Watchman Dave. Yeah, so, and it's the same thing, with the conspiracy stuff, like with the Epstein, with the weather manipulation, with the chemtrails, all that stuff. They've been saying for years that it's conspiracy. You're crazy if you think that stuff. And then it always comes out to be true. So let's take a listen. Again, this is the guy who runs that company, Rainmaker, and he's questioned about what his company's doing.
Perform interviews that you have done about some of the safety and research that you've done on what you use to cloud seed. Now, I want you to please address a larger question, which is one that is somewhat broad and perhaps even religious, but are you playing God? Are you messing with things that you shouldn't be messing with when it comes to the weather?
I get this question all the time, and I totally think it makes sense to ask it. My intention is to serve God. I think that in Genesis 1:26 through 28, and then throughout the Psalms and the rest of the Bible, God tells us to take dominion over and steward creation, both for our sake, creation's itself, and then to honor him. And so if there are droughts and we have the tools to mitigate the damage done by them for our sake and for nature itself, then we should deploy those for the sake of tending to and stewarding the world. And if we weren't to do that, if we were to ban cloud seeding wholesale, despite knowing that it's safe, despite knowing it could help alleviate these problems, we'd be abdicating our God-given responsibility to be stewards of the world.
Okay, let's address what people...
So there is his take on using cloud seeding to help people who need rain when they have the ability to do it. And honestly, that does kind of make sense to me, but when you start to just think about the bigger picture and thinking that you're not changing just the natural course of weather, it makes you for sure wonder. And then not only that, even if Rainmaker wasn't that big of a deal, even if cloud seeding and creating rain wasn't that big of a problem, well, first off, it makes you wonder, what are they putting into the clouds exactly? Because that's being rained down on everybody. So whatever chemicals they're using are being rained now down on the populations. So it's not just like a natural cloud anymore. It's manipulated clouds by chemicals. And then it also makes you wonder if that's what they're doing with that type of weather manipulation. What are they doing with other stuff as well? So this happened. Many of you probably saw this. This happened. This was posted as if it happened just recently before the Kerrville thing, but this was a few months ago. But again, it makes you wonder, what other things are they doing? This happened in Texas and California, actually, but multiple videos out of Texas where it was raining blue water.
How much would it take for you to drink that water? How much money?
Hey, we're camping in this beautiful state park in Texas, and it's been raining, and the water that's coming out of the sky is blue. And it's not this tarp, because it's happening on this tarp too. Look at that. This is crazy. Are they chemtrailing us in Texas?
So to give you the overview of what cloud seeding is, about 93% of all of the liquid water that traverses, liquid and ice water that traverses the lower atmosphere over the U.S., so the water in the clouds, right? About 93% of that doesn't precipitate over land. It just evaporates away or gets recycled by the oceans. That means that there's a ton of water up there that's just going to waste that you can bring down. So certain clouds that aren't naturally precipitating or that aren't very efficiently precipitating, you can identify those with radar. You can measure that there's liquid in them that isn't coming down, fly a drone up into them, disperse a material that freezes the liquid in the cloud. And we can talk about what that material is later, but disperse a material that freezes the liquid in the cloud into big, heavy snowflakes that become heavy enough to fall down. And if it's warm beneath the cloud, melt into rain. If it's cold, stay as snow. And so if you just blast a cloud, right, that isn't, and then it rains, that isn't necessarily proof that you caused it to rain, right? Like maybe you're just good at picking clouds that were going to rain anyway. And so nobody could really justify doing this at scale up until 2017. And what changed then was the National Center of Atmospheric Research, an organization called NCAR out in Colorado. They realized if you have the right wavelength of radar, of dual polarization radar, which I'll talk about again in a sec too, but if you have the right kind of radar and you fly in a zigzag, right, or in a circle, or in your initials, and you only see precipitation on the radar in your flight track, then you can say, oh, that is definitively man-made because we flew in this zigzag or we flew in this spiral and there's only precipitation occurring in that shape. They did that in Idaho in 2017 multiple times. And that was the very first time that people were able to show, one, that it was unambiguously working, and two, that they can measure how much water they put on the ground.
So there you go. There's the explanation of what they're doing with the cloud seeding. Again, I would like to know exactly what is in those chemicals that are being rained down. Because again, the less chemicals that we can get on us, the better. We already have issues with chemicals in the water supplies and all the water supplies through so many different sources. And not only that, now they're raining it down. And again, that they've had this technology since the Vietnam War at least. And just think about how many years have they been saying they're controlling the weather. What a crazy conspiracy. And now they just come out and there's just companies, yeah, we know how to do it. And then you look back and find they've been doing it literally since Vietnam, at the very least. So it's crazy to see, really. So this article has some information on some of the Texas flood stuff. Deadly Texas floods follow strange blue rain and $175 million smart city deals. So again, we just watched the blue rain. That was a couple months ago, I believe, at least a month ago. But also interesting is that we're seeing the smart city initiative set up in this same area. So here's a few of the what says the real conspiracy. Approve massive infrastructure projects in target cities. Use weather modification to create natural disasters. Declare federal emergency requiring complete rebuilding. Rebuilding with smart city technology using disaster relief funds. And implement digital surveillance infrastructure under resilience programs. So is that exactly what's going on here? It's hard to say for sure. I wouldn't say for certain if that's exactly what caused it, but it should for absolutely.